Hello, good evening. Welcome. Thanks so much. I love it when people join us on time because we can get started almost immediately. I appreciate all of you, almost 30 of you that are here right on time. It's 7:30 right on the clock, and we're going to get started. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Priyanka. I look after communications here at GradRight. GradRight is an ed fintech firm. We do two things if you're interested in studying abroad. One, we help you figure out which program, which university to apply to. The other thing we do is we help you figure out how is it that you're going to finance that degree. And how do we do these two things? We do it with the power of data science, of the power of AI. So we've got two fantastic free tools. If you're, depending on where you are on your study abroad journey, whether you're looking for programs to apply to, if perhaps at this point you've already decided, I'd like to apply for this particular degree, what are the kinds of colleges, what are the kinds of programs I should be looking at? You can come onto our platform, SelectRight, take a look, create your own personalized shortlist, get funding insights as well. We want to make sure that you go through the whole process of applying with, the knowledge that once you've received your letters of admission, you can also fund that degree. So that's something that will help you do completely free of charge. In addition to that, we'll also help you, like I said, finance your degree. Perhaps you've already received letters of admission to certain programs. You're exploring what kinds of education loans you may be eligible for. All you need to do is log onto the platform, tell us a little bit about your tuition fees, your living expenses, whether or not you've received scholarships. Based on that information, it's a super short form. Based on that, you'll receive bids from about 15 lenders and banks. So banks will actually compete to give you an education loan. So, gone are the days where you're sort of standing in line with your parents, property papers, this, that, going from bank to bank, dhakke kha rahe ho. None of that. From the comfort of your home, you'll be able to choose the best education loan offer for you. Again, all of these services completely free of charge, always for students with GradRight. What are we doing here this evening? There's 40 of you here. I'm very excited to see all of you. Thank you for spending your Friday evening here with us. You could have been anywhere watching anything you wanted, but you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate that. We're doing the second in our very popular series of Hot Topic. We've had so many questions over the last sort of few months asking us about, of all the business degrees out there, is a master's of finance really worth it for me? For any Indian student that's going abroad, studying abroad is a hugely expensive prospect, and it can be daunting. You want to make sure you're making the right decision. How do we help you make that decision? We're not giving you gyan, none of that today. The idea is to have an open, honest, candid conversation. We want to make sure that we have space to answer all of your questions. So make sure that you're active in the Q&A box. The chat box is also open. Any questions you have related to a master's of finance or even other master's degrees, right, within the business field, let us know, drop those questions in. And who's going to be answering those questions? Nope, not me. We've got a really special guest joining us in all the way from Miami, Florida. We've got Professor Indraneel Chakraborthy. He's the chair of finance at Miami Herbert Business School. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Priyanka. It is a pleasure to meet you and all the participants in this panel discussion today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for us to have you on board. And Professor Indraneel has promised he's going to be completely honest and candid and forthcoming. And there'll be no bias only because he's from Miami Herbert. He's going to be talking as simply someone in finance academia who has had a pretty interesting journey of his own. He doesn't come from a traditional finance, economics, numbers kind of background. He's an engineer by training. Is that right?
Yes, I have my undergrad from IIT Guwahati and my master's from MIT in electrical engineering. And then I worked for a couple of years in Citadel, which is a hedge fund, and Citibank. And then I went for my PhD at Wharton in finance.
Amazing. So an engineer who ended up with a PhD in finance and now is teaching finance as well. And Professor Indraneel, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the person looking at all of these applications that are coming in for programs like the Masters of Finance. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have a team of people who will look at them, and some of them I interview myself, and I am definitely involved in the process very heavily. But essentially, it's not me from beginning to end, but there are many people involved. Yes, all the applicants are welcome to contact me, and if they contact me, I interview them personally. Sometimes the program director interviews them and some other people. But yeah, I look at all applications for sure. And when they finally get admitted, they go through for sure.
Fantastic. And I think that's important for students to know because a lot of times you'll get information off of Google, off of, platforms like Reddit and things like that, where you're asking sort of questions. You have no idea who's answering those questions. You're asking people on Quora for sort of these huge life advice decisions. And, why not take advantage of having someone like you offer their time, and sort of really give evidence-based answers. And I'm sure you've spent so many years in academia looking at applications, talking to students, and we want to make sure that students who are deciding to apply for a master's in finance are doing it for the right reasons. So that's sort of the aim of this sort of next hour. And again, like I said, for folks that are joining us, we want to make sure that you have all the time to be asking all the questions you have. We've had a few questions come in on our social media as well. We'll be taking some of those questions, but do feel free to use the Q&A box. The idea is to keep this as candid, as open as we can through the next hour. So I'm going to ask you right off the bat, hot topic. Is a master's of finance really worth it? And I know that's a pretty broad question, but that's a question we get a lot here at GradRight. We're talking to students day in, day out. They're, dropping us DMs on Instagram, things like that. And a lot of the questions center around, there's such a variety of master's degrees now, right? Available at business schools. The options are endless. How does one really decide, is a master's in finance and MSF really the degree for me?
Yeah, so I mean, I will of course state my bias first. As you said, I am from University of Miami. It is also obvious that I am in finance. So clearly I chose finance to do a PhD, and so those are there. But let me say much more objectively now that of course finance is a very evergreen field. It's a field which is sometimes 20% of the GDP of United States. It's a lot of allocation of capital, right? So it has multiple parts. You are talking about banking, where you are talking about loans, credit cards. You're talking about investment banking, where you're trying to help a firm how to finance their structure. And then you're, of course, talking about trading and investments and so on. These are wealth management, etc. All of this included, from trading, investment banking, loans, credit cards, etc. to wealth management is a large amount of the world economy, right? And this financialization of the world economy has happened. And so advanced knowledge of finance is necessary for, let's say, 15 to 20%, or running 15 to 20% of the GDP of the world. And that tells you how important it is as a field. And so it is very important as a field. Then the question is, within that field, how do you, if you want to participate in finance, which is an evergreen field, how do you participate? And again, here, the reason MSF programs have become quite popular is because over time, people realize that we want a program which is just finance, right? Compared to, if some students want that, because it is becoming more and more specialized compared to an MBA program where you are learning management as a whole. So there will be some finance, there will be some management, some marketing and all that. If you want to do that, that's fine. But if you are interested in just finance, then we have nowadays, as you can see, all universities have created this degree, and it's demand driven. We didn't just think of this. I was involved in the starting of this MSF program at University of Miami, and the discussion was people who do not have the time to do a 2-year MBA program, people who are interested in corporate finance jobs, like recently an airlines company came by here to hire people, because every company needs a finance unit, right? So corporate finance, investments, all of it. All of these people want people who have a lot of advanced knowledge in finance. So this will be a 20, 30 course program with a lot of finance information. And so this is useful. It's a large field and it is focused, and therefore it can be a bit faster, right? So time and what do you get with speed? You get, if it's a long program, it will cost more. It costs you more. So this is a program which has been designed in every university, not just Miami, with students in mind, because there is demand from industry and because it is the fastest way to get people to job ready in finance. That's how each course is designed as well. I'm sure not just in Miami, in other schools as well. So I think it's worth it. I certainly believe it. I am living it. And so I see all the students who have graduated, they come back and say how great, how well they are doing and all that. So I can see it's a rewarding journey and it's an exciting journey. It's innovative, right? You do not do the same thing every day. Your job is not to fix cars which have the same problems every day. Finance has to be innovative. If it's not, then computer programs will do the job for you, right? So if you are not innovating. So it's a challenging, exciting, monetarily rewarding, but intellectually rewarding as well profession. So I enjoy it. I worked in the industry, I enjoyed that. I work in academia, I enjoy it. I consult sometimes with industry and I enjoy it. So I couldn't have chosen a better field. I enjoyed engineering as well. I enjoyed my time as an engineer. I would have continued being an engineer as well. That would have worked out for me as well. But other than being an engineer, finance, and both of these have been a great professions for me, I have to say.
Incredible. And, we've already have quite a few questions coming in that we're going to take over the next sort of 60 minutes. But I did want to ask two questions that we get, sort of again and again and again, within our GradRight community. And you kind of alluded to that a little bit in terms of a lot of these programs, these specialized business masters, are created as a result of industry demand, right? And I think a two-parter question for you. One, what would you say to students that are considering sort of these super buzzy degrees like an MS in business analytics, for instance, or students who are saying, big data is really the future. That's where, all of this is. I have an interest in finance, but I think in terms of a degree, an MSBA is the degree that's going to get me all those really fancy, interesting, jobs that are, the jobs of the future. And what would you say to someone like that who's maybe debating between an MSBA and an MSF and is genuinely interested in finance, or is sort of thinking like, I'll do this sort of after I've graduated with this degree, because perhaps it's sort of like the trendy degree that everyone's talking about. All my college seniors are saying, no, like this is the degree you have to get. And there's always those waves, right, of really trendy degrees. So one, what would you say to a student considering that? And two, what would you say to a student that's sort of debating, should I go for an MSF or perhaps should I go for an MBA with finance? Mm-hmm. So a two-parter question.
Yeah. I think that's a great question because it puts us in a continuum. The continuum is this. In the MBA degree with finance, you will learn a lot of other things such as marketing, leadership, and things like that. In the MSBA, like business analytics degree, you will focus on the quant, right? But you will focus on just that. You will not learn finance, you see. So one degree is all about a lot of things, some finance. The other is also a specific thing, but that's not finance. That's, how to deal with data. What finance brings is domain knowledge of finance. So there's a lot of institutional details you need to know. You need to know how markets work, the bond markets work, the stock markets work, how financing is done, the economics behind it, right? So finance and economics, you have to understand all that. And then, of course, then you can choose a little bit, well, I want to go super strong in quant, and we do that, right? I teach a class in algorithmic trading where we are looking at big data and using it for trading, right? And then we also talk about credit card loans and how should the prices be decided. But again, I am going to talk about data with a focus on finance, right? Because the same analytical focus that you have, you can just have it without any domain knowledge. If that happens, then the problem is if you are ultimately, if your goal is to go to finance or an analytical field where you're helping a company, in some sort of a job where they are going to make investment decisions or they are going to handle money or anything like that, you need the domain knowledge as well as the quant skills. And we make sure that you have both of them. But of course, if you are looking at a general degree, I know I just want to handle data somehow, and I'm not sure where I'm going to go. I might actually look at weather patterns, right? If that's what you want to do, then, clearly a degree which is focused on data without any domain knowledge is something to do. It's the same distinction between statistics and economics, right? We call statistics as a whole is just a field which we all use, right? But then, and in fact, a business analytics degree, many of the professors there are statisticians, right? So they are that. And then there are econometricians who understand economics and, how to do careful statistics within the economic profession. So in fact, I teach the class, it's called financial econometrics because it's econometrics. It is understanding financial data and looking at stock market data, bond market data, interest rate data, currency markets data, how to trade all that, right? And they all have their own, so again, there is a lot of domain information which you cannot just suddenly walk into the field and start doing, right? I mean, as I was saying, even I had to learn a lot before I could be useful in my jobs. And so you have to choose what you want to do. You can spend your time in learning statistics and quant methods, but then you have to work with somebody who knows the domain. That person is not going to be the trader, right? That person is not going to be the wealth manager. That person is not going to be able to finance a company's debt, right? That person is not going to decide whether the company should buy a big airplane or a small airplane. Right? These are the kind of decisions that my students are making right now, immediately after they go do a job, after they graduate. For those decisions, you need domain knowledge, and that we provide in addition to quantitative skills. And some classes are qualitative as well. So some people say, well, I want finance, but I do not want to go super crazy on algorithmic trading and time series. So we'll introduce you to that, but then you can choose to focus on, I say, less quantitative, but still very quantitative. Finance is always about numbers and quantitative things. So it's going to be a good, it's a balance. It's a balance with a lot of domain knowledge, with some analytical skills, strong analytical skills, but it's not, it's a combination. So anyway, so I hope that I answered the question.
Yeah, it definitely does. So tons of questions coming in. I'll take some of the. Yeah, okay. So I think this is a good continuation of sort of what we've already started to talk about. Reshma asks, what master's is better for someone who wants to pursue investment banking, an MBA or a master's of finance, or is there some other master's program that would suit the job more? What would you say to Reshma?
Yeah, so I think there the answer is very clear, right? In fact, the answer is a Master of Science in Finance. I can tell you that many times MBAs do not get hired for very precise degrees anymore, right? Because they are, as Citadel, for example, say a large hedge fund. I know, but there was no MBA getting hired at that point when I was joining, right? They want people who have quant skills and domain knowledge, right? I didn't have domain knowledge, but they liked my quant skills, and and so I had to struggle to learn the domain knowledge. But that's what they want. Investment banking, etc. That's what many of the students are doing. Now you can do an MBA. I'm not saying you cannot do an MBA, but then you have to take more finance classes, and you have to choose them as electives, which is great. Again, it will also, if you think that you are not, you need some, MBA is a full, complete curriculum, right? Compared to a finance degree, which is about finance. So we do not teach you any leadership. We do not teach you any marketing. We do not teach you many topics. We teach you only finance, right? And that's what we do. But that's enough for most finance jobs, right? Many other jobs, many other degrees will also say, hey, look, our students are placed in finance. And that's true, right? Many engineers directly go into a finance job, right? But the question is, if you are taking a degree, what degree should you take for a finance job? That's your question. And the answer is very clear. The fastest, the cheapest, the most efficient degree you can take is an MSF. That's why it was created, right? So.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, an interesting question, one more coming in this one's from Chitra. It's a bit of a long one, but I'll read it to you. So Chitra says she has a BCom background. She tried pursuing her CA during her bachelor's, but dropped it midway. She doesn't have much experience in marketing. Neither is she interested in HR, nor does she have a BTech or coding background. So she said, I thought of going for accounting or finance and investment. But like you said in the introduction, I'm skeptical about my decision. This is a high life decision and involves a lot of money as well. So I wanted to know about the course, MSF, and the demand for the course so that I can assess if it's a right fit for me. Can you tell me a little bit about the ROI, the employment opportunities, and basic starting pay after I do such a program? I wanted to know if I'll be able to cope up with me, as most of the modules are new to me. So an interesting question there, sort of, this is obviously specific to Chitra and she wants to know specifically about things, but I think, overall, if you could sort of address a little bit about, essentially, is it really worth it? And I know you sort of talked a little bit about it in our first question, but yeah.
I can, again, salaries depending upon who we are talking about. There's a lot of variation. Some people tell me their salaries. I do not try to keep track of it, but I recently heard somebody got a job from our program, 150K job, right? Now, I will not say that's everybody's job, right? And there are people, again, so one of the most important things is that as soon as you join a program, a professional program anywhere, recognize the fact that it's not just going to the classes. In fact, I would advise everybody to immediately start thinking about internships and jobs. Even at Wharton, when I went for my PhD, there were people with 2 years MBA. First week, they are trying to get internships, right? And you in an MSA program, as I said, it's shorter. And why is it shorter? Because students do not want to spend 2 years and want, as I said, cheapest and efficient. But that also means that you have to hit the ground running. And those people who are motivated and hit the ground running, they are going to get very good jobs. And so, the pays are very rewarding. They can, there are a lot of people with 100K. There are some which will come down to 90, 80K also. I would not say everybody's getting 150K. But 150K is not the highest either. It's just a random number of an entry-level job in finance in Miami right now, right? Because it's a large, again. So the other thing I will say is that, again, I'm not biased for Miami. Of course, I like Miami, but go to a big city if you can. Because as if you are thinking about a short program, go to a city where there's a lot of finance already. There's a reason why NYU, Columbia do so well in finance, right? Because they are there, right? I mean, Wharton is in Philadelphia, it's close to New York. All of that matters. Miami is another big hub for finance, in addition to New York on the East Coast. So those are the kind of things that matter. Ultimately, you have to apply, network. We will, every school helps. I'm sure we help a lot. Everybody helps. And if you do that, you will be able to do this. But again, one thing I'll warn you, I'm not going to sell this to you. It was Chitra's question, I think. I just want to say that you have to be very sure. It's a lot of hard work. A finance degree is a lot of hard work. So you should not choose it by exclusion of the other degrees. It should be that I really want to do it. There will be a lot of work. It can be done. A lot of people I see do it. But if you say, well, I'm not really sure, the danger then is that it is significant amount of work where you have to do classwork and then also have to network and try to get a job, which we will help you and everybody will help you with. But it's massive amount of work and the field is very intense, right? I mean, there's a reason people in finance are assertive, strong. We are not, we are not the easiest bunch, right, of quiet people. So I hope that you have an outgoing personality. You are determined in what you do, and that's more important than your exact background. That you will say, okay, I'm going to do well here. That's why I'm coming.
And that leads in so well to our next question. So this person asked, they've chosen to stay anonymous. If someone wants to switch to finance from an unrelated field, and perhaps they have little exposure to numbers, what are the skills that are important? What are general skills that you can use to get ahead in the industry?
Yeah, I think determination. I will tell you this. In fact, when I was, I have interviewed for a bunch of, for 2 companies, and I have been to other interviews where a bunch of other people were there as well as a faculty member. The first word I hear in finance is hunger. People want to find out hungry people. They are not looking for the smartest guy. They are looking for the hungriest guy. And of course, everybody is smart enough. You see, I mean, I don't meet people who are not very smart, right? I mean, they exist, but they are not around us, right? So the point is that, so who is hungry? Who is determined? And so you can come from an unrelated field. I came from an unrelated field. And I have friends who are successful economists, finance professors, finance professionals. They came from liberal arts, history, all of these, physics. So from history, physics to philosophy, everything. But one thing they have is they're sharp, they're determined, and they do not take this thing, oh, I cannot do as well as you. They will never say that, right? Of course, they are going to do as best as everybody can. So it's not your field that matters. Finance is a very open field. It's one of the fields where you will see people from everywhere because it is so competitive that your worth will be clear very quickly, right? So if you can do a good job, what do I care what field you came from? You are making money today, right? Every day the markets are telling us who is smart and who is not. You see, we have instant gratification and instant judgment if you are investments, right? And so this is a very honest and sometimes brutally honest field, right? So as long as you are determined, you can do it. But the determination, that willingness to really learn the field properly and not give yourself excuses that, oh, I'm coming from somewhere else, so I cannot do it. Don't give yourself that excuse. If you are taking the leap, you're taking a big leap, a strong leap, and take that strongest leap you can into the field. And it will work. For those who are determined, it will work.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, sort of for anyone that's considering business school to think about. All right. Interesting. 2 questions about CFAs and sort of I'll take both of them. I think you can probably handle both in one answer. So Ankita writes, do you think that a person who has completed a CFA would benefit from an MSF? Also, if they would like to move to the United States for jobs, would a CFA be enough, or would an MSF help? So that's one question about CFA. Another person asking, I have experience of 8 years in finance. I have a CFA, I have a CFA charter holder and also hold an engineering degree. Does it make sense for me to pursue a master's in finance now, or is it too late already?
No, so for the second question, I'll take that first. I mean, most people in finance do not start so we have two bimodal distribution. If you're an engineer as well, I'll say with the bimodal distribution of people who just do their undergrad and then join. I generally don't, I encourage people not to do that first. I say take a couple of years of industry experience. But there are some very smart undergrads and they want to get some additional degree, I understand. So, but 30 years is the right age, right? So for choosing your final career, I think. So it is not late at all. It's the right time, I think. And about the first question about CFA, I will say that, yes, CFA is very helpful. I have done CFA level 1 and 2. Then I stopped doing it because I thought, well, I'm going to, after that, I got admitted into Wharton. So I thought, well, if I have a PhD, CFA does not matter. And that's generally the case. If you have a degree in finance, master's, then nobody is expecting a CFA from you because you know your finance. CFA is also signaling that. But clearly, a master's in finance is a much more intense than a CFA, no doubt about that. But CFA is a good degree. I like it. It's a great degree. In fact, we help people if they want to get a CFA degree. There are some CFA classes we also run. So if people want to get it, that's fine. But I have never heard anybody not get a job after our masters, or anybody after our masters, I can say for that. Good masters, that's enough, right? And one more thing I would add here, if you are we all know this, we are all Indians here, so we know that how employment process is not as easy. I mean, to get an H-1B visa, there is a path. The standard path that everybody follows is that you study in US, and then now we have done this, and many other schools are doing it perhaps, but at least I can speak for Miami. We have a STEM degree, a STEM certification. What that does is gives you 3 years of optional practical training. So after finishing the degree, you get 3 years work visa, and then you can transition to H-1B and things like that. And that's one path that many students follow, including me. I graduated from here, and then I worked. If you can do a CFA and straight join, if you can do it, then do it. I mean, I would not stop you from doing it. It's a good idea if you can do it. If you see that you are having difficulty, then think about a master's. Yes, it's true. If you have some exposure to finance, then you will find some things a bit easier, right? But I do not think that you have learned the whole program, right? So
yeah,
a lot of it you do not have. No.
One question coming in from Abhishek. I'm currently doing CA along with BCom. Later on, I plan to do CFA and then go for a master's. Do you think, what do you think will help me more, an MBA in finance or an MS in finance? Wow, that's a lot.
Again, I think, yeah. So I think you may be overqualified, right? In some sense, with chartered accountants and all that. And again, if you're doing all of these things, you have some finance information. We try to teach finance. It is true that we try to teach finance at a very advanced level, but we also try to teach everybody from everywhere coming in. So we can't run different programs for different people. And so at the same time, the question is whether you want to do an MBA or, so if you think you have enough finance, then maybe you should do MBA where you will learn other things, not finance, right? If you know enough finance, then why do you want to keep learning finance? It depends on what you are hoping to get out of it. I mean, are you trying to be a general manager? If that's what you want to be, then you should take an MBA. If you want to work in finance, then you may have enough, and then maybe you can get a job. And you don't do any degree, right? More degrees. And maybe if you need a degree then, because you are working in finance and somehow your CFA is not enough, as I was saying in the previous question, then maybe you should do it. But again, I will not say to anybody, you need a degree just for the sake of it. If you can get good jobs, see, the purpose of professional degrees is to get good jobs. If you have a good job, if you're happy with it, you shouldn't do a degree, right? No degrees are necessary. Stop where you're happy. That's all I say.
Yeah, I think you're never going to get more candidate advice than a professor saying, don't go for a degree if it's not necessary.
I
So
mean,
I really appreciate
you don't
that.
need it, then what are you doing it for? Right?
Fair enough. Yeah. What are you doing it for? Something to think about before you sort of spend time and effort and a lot of money on this degree. Okay. Along the same lines, I have a question coming in from Yogita. And again, it's slightly specific, but I think it would be good to address. So Yogita asks, is an MSF the route to go to if I'd like to recruit to investment banking at either the bulge brackets or the elite boutiques, or is an MBA generally the route to go? Also, would consulting really be the way after an MSF, or would you suggest a different degree for it, please? And in fact, I think Yogita had also sent in a question on our Instagram DMs asking exactly this, sort of, is an MSF really sort of the way to go for a consulting job? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so MSF is the way to go for investment banking jobs, investment management jobs, wealth management jobs, trading jobs. Consulting is a general management degree job, right? And so they do hire people from professional. So I for example, when I was going for my academic position, I still kind of interviewed with some of these consultants. And they interviewed me and they wanted me to join as well. So it's not that they do not want people who are just in finance. They want it. But of course, consulting is a great job, is a great career for which MBA makes perfect sense. That's a good match there, right? Because you have management, you have some marketing, all of that, right? But if you are interested in investment banking, trading, working in the corporate finance of a company, right? And again, through that also, if you rise through a company, many CFOs rise, many finance people become CFOs and essentially are in the leading group and maybe become CEOs too. So if your path is through finance, then you should do a finance degree. If your path is, I want a general understanding of how to manage companies, right? Then yeah, MBA would be perfect. So if you're interested in McKinsey, etc., go for for an MBA. If you're invested in bulge bracket bank, yeah, they are hiring big time in MSF programs. The problem sometimes is that they do not find enough finance educated people. So then they start hiring others also, right? They hired statisticians, they hired me as an engineer. They're like, well, we need people who understand maths, but also can do finance. So it was always expected that I must learn finance. But they did not expect me to know marketing. So there was no use for me to know have an MBA, right? An MS in electrical engineering was enough. But if you are going to go for something specific for a financial institution, I will say generally, then do an MSF. That would be fine. Consulting, MBA.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. An interesting question coming. You touched on a little bit about why location matters, sort of, looking at what kinds of jobs, what kind of internships you'll get after graduation, and sort of, especially if you're going to business school, why location matters. So Abhishek asks, would you consider Miami a good place for finance? Because as far as I know, New York City is a pretty good place for finance because of the presence of major investment banks there. Now, I do know that especially during COVID, there was this huge influx of financial firms into Miami, and sort of, it's being pitched as the hottest, literally, I guess, and figuratively, new finance hub in the United States. Sort of, forget Wall Street, Miami is where it's at. Is that just marketing, or is there truth to that?
So, I'm not going to sell Miami over New York. New York is great. I worked in New York, right? Everybody works in New York. I will say this, even when I was working in New York, when you have to raise capital, where do you come? You come to West Palm Beach. All the rich people retire in Florida, in West Palm Beach to Miami, right? In that area, West Palm Beach, Boca Raton, Miami. So capital has always been here. Money has to be raised here, right? I worked at Citadel, which was in Chicago. They would also raise capital from West Palm Beach, New York, West Palm Beach, right? So all the money is raised. There are rich people everywhere, but there's strong concentration here. Yes, after COVID, that has happened. I will say that Miami is second to New York. I would not say it's first, right? It's never first, but all the banks, which are like JP Morgan, etc. Our students are going to getting a job at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citibank. They are all here as well. They don't exist in just one location, right? Their headquarters may be in New York, but they hire people everywhere, right? And sales and trading, there are 3 floors of sales and trading, which is in Citibank where I was when I was trading. That is happening there in New York. But all these other jobs, investment banking, etc., private equity, they are dispersed. And Miami is second strongest, I would say. Maybe if you want to talk about Charlotte is another third place where Bank of America is, but it's not really high finance hub. It's finance, but then with high finance in the sense that you're trading interest rate swaps, futures, bonds, a lot of security. So those kind of things, I would say Miami is second or third. So it's a great city, zero state taxes, which actually is one of the reasons why many of these people are coming. Citadel moved from Chicago to Miami recently. And all these other big banks have presence. So I wish New York best. If you choose to go to New York, I wish you good luck. It's a great place. I liked it. I spent my time in East Coast, Boston, New York, Philly. So, but I think that over time, you will see that many of our students come from New York. They go back to New York. There's a lot of strong half a year in New York, half a year in Miami kind of thing going on. So it's not a competition. It's like Boston and New York. The people say, oh, which is better. There's a lot. When I was in Boston, there was a lot of like Boston's better than New York. New York is better than Boston. You can play those games. Miami has, as you can see, has joined that game, but I wouldn't play that game. All of these places are good, right? So.
Yeah, I did want to ask though, you yourself had that journey that many of the students here might be taking themselves, right? Sort of coming from India to the United States as a graduate student. And, many of these people might be sort of interested in living on after they graduate, looking for jobs and perhaps building a life in the United States. So I did want to ask, in terms of just life in Miami, what sort of insights could you share for someone that might actually be deciding, wait, should I go to business school in New York? Should I go to business school in Miami? Beyond the classroom and beyond things like, what's a finance hub or where will I get the best kind of jobs, just in terms of quality of life. Can you tell us a little bit about life in Miami?
Life in Miami is very good. I have my wife and child here, and it's a great city. It's very multicultural. And in fact, yesterday I was in the commencement ceremony. So one of the speakers was making this point that Miami is, the keynote speaker was making this point that Miami is what the ideal idea of United States, that people are from everywhere. Nobody here, if you ask people, where are you from? Nobody will say I'm from Miami. They will say I'm from Colombia. I'm from this. I'm from Cuba. I'm from Canada, right? Even everybody is claiming to be from somewhere else. But what that also means is that nobody's telling you, why are you here, right? I mean, that's not a question that anybody asks. And it's everybody's place. And it belongs to everyone and no specific group. And that's a great thing that I've heard from a lot of people. That's the idea of United States as well. And I think that idea is well represented in Miami. It is also well represented in New York and Boston. These are great cities as well. I have had the kindest interactions there, great people, big-hearted in Chicago, in Philadelphia. People are generally nice and very positive. Towards, I will say, towards people from other countries and towards Indians in particular. I have only had positive interactions everywhere. And so, but Miami is among all these cities, one of the most multicultural cities, perhaps more than even New York in that respect, right? So.
And I have to ask, there's another question that's come in on the chat box, a great question. Could you talk a little bit about what are the cultural differences and challenges I might face as an international student pursuing a degree in a foreign country? And I ask that because, of course, like I mentioned, you've sort of done that journey yourself and you're talking to students day in, day out, right? What are some of the challenges specifically for Indian students that are coming into the United States that you would sort of say that these are sort of the 4 or 5 things that you typically see, and perhaps these are ways that we can sort of better prepare for that culture shock?
Maybe I'm going to be optimistic about it, but because I had heard this question that, are you going to face a cultural shock? And I say, I say that to people. I have to face no cultural shock. I think people just speak English here all the time compared to in India where they speak half of the time, right? And yes, it is a little bit of a richer country, right? So I've not faced any cultural shocks in that sense. So adjustment, I think also, this, perhaps you all know this, that Indian immigrants are the highest earner group in United States, above others who are natives and all that, and of course other immigrants. It is the highest earning group. So clearly we are adjusting quite well, right? We are adjusting quite well, and people are nice. And so what would be the things that I will say? Yeah, In the beginning, you will feel lonely, but there are lots of Indians around in general, everywhere, right? Which is great. And so you will interact with them. And then, of course, you will see that your interactions with Indians and non-Indians will at some point become pretty similar. With the Indians, you will speak maybe Hindi and other languages. But with others, you will also be able to communicate with great proficiency because you speak English. And you will see that they will be very welcoming. So I see that, and this is a general sentiment I've heard from Americans as well, that Indians integrate very well. And this has been I think, yeah, I mean, there's always that you're going to a new place. I will say this, if you are living in Lucknow, where I was born, and if I lived in Bangalore, there will be some adjustment too. Is it not there? I mean, so we must ask ourselves how much of the adjustment is because it's a new place versus a new country. And I will say on that front, you will probably find that most of the adjustment is because of a new place and not a different country.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that perspective. So I just want to say that we have about 20 minutes left, and we've had quite a stream of questions come in. We may miss some questions in the chat box. So I would really encourage folks that have questions that we may not have had time to address yet. Please use the Q&A section to ask that question, just so that we can sort of address it and so that we can see it. Sometimes the chat box, there's been so many questions and comments coming in that I really don't want to miss out on any. So yeah, another 20 minutes or so. Now is really the time if you've got questions about MSF. If you want to know about the Miami program as well, specifically, this is really the time to ask those questions. And I actually did just want to quickly check before we get back to more questions. Applications are still open for MSF at Miami?
Yes, they are open. Yeah. Of course, you should do it quickly because visa, it's not up to us, but the problem is that US Embassy will take some time, right? So if you want to do it quickly, then contact Hasil and Priyanka, and that's the way to do it. So, but for anyway, you should do it quickly if you have to do it this year. Also, we admit people in January, and the reason for that is because of this kind of transition. Sometimes people, it's a smaller cohort. It's not as many admissions, but we do that.
Yeah, that's actually a question we get in quite a bit. Is there a preferred cohort that you would recommend? Because fall tends to be sort of the more popular one. Yeah. Is there an advantage or disadvantage of spring versus fall?
There's no disadvantage, but yeah, it's a smaller cohort, right? I mean, we have 2 sections in fall and 1 section in spring. We do that way, so that. But it's no. We try to make sure they're similarly treated everywhere, and they interact with each other. So it's kind of a continuous cohort in some sense.
Got it. Fair enough. Okay, let's get back to questions because there's suddenly quite a lot that have come in. Let us see. Okay, interesting question. I have an interest in finance, but I'm not quite interested in the quantitative side. Should I still pursue an MSF? Will it be beneficial for me, even if I turn out to be bad in the quant side? What would you say?
So finance, no, I think this is an important thing. We finance has a lot of portions where you do not have to crunch numbers day in, day out, right? I think that's one of the things which we, as I was saying, that we allow for, that we have people who understand the mathematics, who understand what's going on, but at the same time, if you are, for example, a loan officer or a credit card, how should you strategize a credit card, launch, right? Or which company should be, again, as I was saying, investment projects choices in a corporate treasury job. So the maths is not that difficult, right? You need to understand it, but once you understand, it's not like it's going to change on you every 5 minutes, right? And you're not crunching numbers all the time, but you have to deal with the whole financing structure of a company or choose how to invest. You have to see what is the investment profile. So many, in fact, so there are places which are heavy quant and there are places which are, standard finance level things. I mean, you should not hate numbers. That would be a problem. But it should not be that you have to start coding everywhere. And start doing integrations every 5 minutes. That's not what a lot of finance jobs are. Understanding finance, but so I hope I understand. I answered the question. So.
Okay, 2 really interesting questions coming in that are slightly related, so I'm going to take them one after the other. One person asks, I have heard that big investment banks look for finance degrees, but also give a lot of emphasis to brand and pedigree. Is that
Mhm.
the way that they do for MBA? Is that true for MSF as well? Does
Mhm.
the brand of the school matter for MSF the way that it does for an MBA?
So the brand always matters, right? And now what is the brand? How does it matter? I'll tell you this. For example, uh, many companies, many banks go to a certain set of universities. Why do they go there? Because they have been going there for every year. So now if anybody else wants to get a job there, they have to have a connection, and through that, they do that. So once, however, you have made the connection, they will come to your place also if they get a certain number of people from you. Why is that? Because they don't want to waste their time going to, this is not about the rank of the school or anything. This is just, they are going to 5 places or 10 places and they want to get their class filled. They need 50 people. They're going to go to 10 places. That's it. Now you say, well, why didn't you come to my school? Well, why should they? They got their 50 people from another place, right? So, and now you can, so it's not about the rank per se, but the channel. And so we have established those channels as well. For example, at Miami, we have Citibank coming every year, JP Morgan coming every year, Goldman Sachs coming everywhere. Now you can tell me that there is another school with better rank in a city that nobody visits. And probably that is true, right? And so then the question is that school's rank worse than ours? I'll say no. That school's rank, however, whichever ranking institution is decided is probably the rank. But is it true that is it easier to go to a big city and is it easy to come to Miami Airport from 20 minutes from the city of Miami? Yes. Is it easy to hire people from Columbia, just take the train ride? Yes. NYU, yeah. Are there cities and colleges which takes 2 hours to drive to, and then you will find your people and it's very cold and hard to get there? Yes. And is it then difficult for those people to get a job? Yes. Does it matter that their rank is high? It matters if they could somehow get there. But is the rank going to decide whether they get a job? No. Right? So all of those, I think, so it's really, the pedigree matters, but again, the rank matters. But again, so for example, you will not perhaps see, I know, I will not say those institutions, they're very good institutions, but people don't go there. It's hard to get there. I don't want to go there. There are students, we have not gotten a lot of students from there. And what happens when we have alumni who are from our school or any other school, they push for people to be hired from there. Once I went to Citibank, I told people, why don't you go directly hire people from IIT? And then the next year they showed up to hire people directly from IIT. So now is it that, somehow IIT's rank went up? No, not really. It's just, there was a guy sitting there who was telling them, go to my school. And so find a school which has a strong brand institution. That's where brand name matters. How strong the alumni is, how much it care, how much the people care. And here I will, celebrate that University of Miami in Florida on the East Coast has a very strong name. People are, very, very passionate about their school's name. So if they see another person from the same university, they will try to hire that person, right? And you can say, I'm from Harvard, but they'll say, well, I want to hire the guy from U, right? We use the symbol U, and so that's the kind of thing that would happen. So again, the student network that you have will be very important to you. So of course, you should get to the school that is best in rank. If you can, that's good. I will not ever say don't do that. But at the same time, also understand that there are a variety of factors, including the strength of the alumni network in that particular institution where you're trying to get hired, the accessibility of the location through which, and the channel that has been established between the HR of that institution and the college that matters as well. So look at the placements, ask people for it, try to find places where good placements are happening, and choose that way.
Fair enough. Another question coming in from Yogita. Would you say that Herbert's MSF program helps recruit to investment banks? If yes, could you please elaborate on it as to how the process would be? Thank you.
The process is simple. I mean, companies come to campus, people apply directly to the companies, and we have a lot of alumni. And so I will say that, we have a graduate center, graduate placement center as well. The department does a lot to place as well. We have program director. We have a lot of people who are busy trying to make sure that placements are as good as possible. Sometimes, I have people mail me directly and I said, okay, we will get you as an information session so that you can hire those 3 people you need soon. And so we do whatever we can and students are in short supply. Sometimes one student told me, I need to go have dinner I cannot attend the information session. I'm like, no, sit down here and try to get it done. So the thing is that most of the time, the process is quite simple. I go back to the point that you have to be very motivated and try to connect through the system. We will do our best because again, as I said, I want you to come here or go anywhere and get educated, but at the same time, make sure that you understand it's a professional degree. You're not there to do just academics. Immediately start on trying to get a job and do your best, and then work with the career office, work with the professors, and you will get a good job if you are determined enough. Right? And a good brand name. Many places have good brand names that will help. Right. So.
Got it. And you talked a little bit about this, but I'm going to ask you once again, so that because you answered this in 2 or 3 different questions. But Abhishek writes to ask, what would you say are the soft skills that are important for a finance student?
Yes, very important question. Very important question, because this is one of the things, perhaps, when you go back to the other question about what in general I will say about immigrants, right, is that we are speaking a different language, right? I mean, but it's not that difficult for us, but still it's not our first language, right? So communication in general, even for Americans and everyone, I keep saying this, how intelligent you are is unknown to the rest of the world except your own head. So how are you going to, if you cannot communicate your great ideas clearly and cogently, logically, and in precision, then we do not know that you are smart, right? And so communication skills are extremely important, verbal and written. And I think sometimes people ignore them. Small things like that, making eye contact, showing up in class in time, right? Shaving, right? Those kind of things. All of that matters, right? Wearing proper shoes. I mean, I think the new generation sometimes, thinks that things have moved on, but they have moved on. But see, one of the things that people don't tell you that they particularly have not moved on, right? So your employer may not have moved on. He may still care about it. She may still care about it. They are not going to inform you. I had this experience. One of the friends of mine said to me, he was in a good investment bank and he had spiky blue hair. So when I was leaving academia, I said to him, he came by and said, I'm struggling in my job. I am not getting a big book to trade. I said, look, I'm leaving. You're my friend. Let me tell you this. Look at the trading floor. Everybody was wearing a blue shirt and a khaki pant. You are the only one with spiky blue hair. So finance is a conservative field, right? And it is because we are handling somebody else's money. We do not need to be very exciting, right? The field is exciting enough. You do not want additional excitement from the individual. We want reliability, we want hunger, we want clarity of communication, but overall trust, right? So trust is bred with reliability, communication, clarity, and intelligence. So those are the skills, and many of them are soft, as you can see.
All right, fantastic. Super candid answer. Hope you got your answer, Abhishek. We're in the final 5 minutes of this session. So I do want to sort of take some of the questions that we've had come up again and again. And one question is specific to Miami Herbert. Do investment banks, private equity, and venture capital firms sponsor H-1B visas for Indian students from Miami's MSF program?
Yeah, they do. And in fact, that's why we have this transition of it. What we did was we got approval through USDHS, etc., for a 3-year optional practical training. So wherever you go, look for after the degree, how many years can you stay before H-1B visa? So you get a F1 student visa for the program. And after that, you have some time in which you have to get a job, right? Essentially, I think about 3 months. And then you have to get a job within that period, right? The education time and the 3 months time. And then you have either a 1 year, if you have an optional practical training standard, or 3 years optional practical training. Miami offers a 3-year optional practical training. And any place you go, make sure that you have that. And then within that 3 years, employers will hire you and then they will do H-1Bs for you. Is it true that Americans have an easier time to get a job than foreigners? Yes. They don't need visa. Visas are hard, right? No doubt. But they are still, I mean, I went to France at some point and they have no path, right? They told me the only way I can become, so I got a job there. I said, what is my path, transition path from this to staying, getting a green card so that I could stay there? And I was not going to take the job, but they said, well, you can marry a French girl. I said, is that the official immigration path? That's their situation at that time. I mean, this is 15, 20 years ago, but I mean, we don't have that, right? So we have a clear 3-year of optional practical training in which you have a job and you have essentially a kind of an employment authorization card, which looks like a green card. You hold that. And then if you did a good job, your company will sponsor it. It will cost them like $5,000 to do it. So clearly they are not going to do it for everyone. But of course, if they like you, which, that's why they hired you in the first place. So if you get a job, chances are they like you. And then you will continue with them and get H-1B and then green card. But this is always going to take, I'm not going to say you will get green card, you will get H-1B, you will get a job. Any of that is not true, right? Because who am I to say that? But there is a clear path, and we have made the path as easy as possible to the extent that we can help it. And many schools are doing it.
Got it. Okay, so last few minutes, I think this might just be the last or the second last question, but do you, and this is again specific to Miami, so I did want to quickly take it, do you offer internship opportunities within the MSF program for someone coming from a math background, but no full-time work experience? So it's a 10-month program. Is there really room for an internship within that?
Yeah, so this is the issue, that internships are there for Americans because they do not need a visa. For foreigners, you cannot work. You have to stay in the program for a certain period of time before you become eligible for internships. And these programs are too short to have an official one. So what we are doing is we are reorganizing the capstone class. There's a class which is for industry experts to come work on a project with you. And I'm hoping to actually, I took up as chair in February. So that's why I'm doing these reorganizations. So we are going to also essentially have those people come in, do a project, which will look like an internship, but essentially not paid, it's just a class assignment, but it's essentially a project. But then I'm also hoping that they will look at the project and then hire a bunch of them. I have told people that if you want to come to University of Miami and do parties, because everybody keeps telling me, all these industry people keep telling me that they would like to come and teach. I'm like, you can come to this capstone class, do a project, because they are right here. This is the other thing, right? Benefit. So you can do a project, and then if people do well, you got to hire some of them. And if you don't do any of that, no, don't come next year. I don't have patience for people who just show up and waste everybody's time. So I have a specific purpose here to get industry people to come to work with students and also place them. That's my objective. So we'll see how it works out. But that's the objective here and this is, as you can imagine, I'm doing this for international students because US DHS, US Department of Homeland Security does not allow us to let people go for visa and other things without a long enough program, right? So.
Fair enough. I think with that, we'll probably wrap. One sort of last platform to, we spent sort of this last hour talking a little bit about the MSF, and the whole idea was, is it really worth it? If you could sort of give your elevator pitch to our students, and it doesn't have to be about Miami, generally about finance. What are your thoughts? Is it really worth it to pursue an MSF as an Indian student in the US?
Finance is an evergreen field. It's a large field. It's a dynamic and well-paying field. And it's an exciting and interesting field, but it is for determined people. So if you are a determined, interested, a determined guy with interest in doing something new every day, then you should join finance and you will be happy. But it is hard work, right? It's not an easy field, right? Per se, but it's, something which is well paid should not be very easy, right? So that's my pitch. And but there are other degrees you can do, other places you can go. Life is full of opportunities. You're all young, so that's your biggest wealth. Only growth is ahead of you. So.
Fantastic. I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much. Hopefully this conversation helped folks that are thinking about, is an MSF really the right degree for me? Should I really go to business school in the US? Is this the right time to even be going to business school? Hopefully we were able to answer some, if not all of your questions. There were so many questions that were flowing into the Q&A box that at some point we did lose track a little bit, but I tried to address at least all of the more common questions. But if you have more questions, feel free to DM us. We're on Instagram at GradRight. We're on LinkedIn, wherever it is that you want to connect with us. We'll try and take any sort of big questions that we have coming in to Professor Indraneel. Sir, thank you so much for spending your Friday morning with us and the GradRight student community. We really appreciate it. You were incredibly candid and forthright in sort of all of your opinions. And I think, for us, it's most important that students sort of go into this with, eyes wide open and really take these decisions, based on sort of rational facts and not just opinions and not just sort of beta ye pad lo, ye kar lo, those kinds of opinions and that sort of permeate, especially, in India. And so we really want to make sure that students are really thinking actively and critically about this huge life-changing decision. And hopefully they were able to get some answers and some reassurances in this conversation. But thank you for spending your morning with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Priyanka, for inviting me. Thank you to Hasil, and best of luck to all of you students. You will do well, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.